our ability to all meet together one more time on this blessed journey in relating to the Quran and realizing how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to us individually through the Quranic verses, and the journey of making a connection with our Rabb, and understanding how the Quran is our the words that we exchange with our Rabb is our way to know our Rabb, and our way to know ourselves. And Sister Yamina, Jazallah Khair, has been our teacher and guide on this journey. And we have stopped last week at ayah 6 and 7 in Surah Al-Alaq, and our regular host, Sister Isra, may Allah give her full shifa, is not feeling well today, so I'm subbing for her. And with that, we turn the microphone to our beloved Dr. Yamina. تفضلي جزاك الله كل خير.
Thank you, Alia. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. So after the 5 first ayat, last week we focused on ayah 6 and 7, where we were told, surely a human being transgresses whenever he believes himself to be self-sufficient. كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى أن رآه استغنى. And we talked about the choices that we have, but we didn't focus on the relationship between transgression and believing oneself to be self-sufficient. So last week we went through the fact that when let's put it in a more positive way. Let's say we reflected on the importance of learning how to read in the name of our Rabb. And when we don't learn how to read in the name of our Rabb, when we don't read the signs around us, and the signs that let's remind ourselves, is everything going on in life, all events or beings are divine speech, just like our Rabb speaks to us through the Quran. He speaks to us through his creation. He does not create anything in vain. But of course, we need the guidance of the Quran to learn to decipher the meaning of the signs, the ayat in the creation. So when we don't learn, we remain in the darkness of ignorance. So remember, in the 5 first ayat, it was about, we were told that we were asked to read in the name of our Rabb, and then we were told that we were taught that our Rabb علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. He has taught us what we don't learn. And we talked about how true knowledge is a knowledge that is related to the divine names. Anything that does not take us to the divine names is not true knowledge, because we are going to misuse it. It will take us away from the reality. And we talked about the origin of that is how we view ourselves in the first place. So that ignorance is the ignorance or the arrogance stems from the delusion of self-sufficiency, we said. And this delusion, or this illusion, let's say, when we believe we are self-sufficient, it causes misery for the person himself, and it destroys the person's akhirah and eternal life. It also deprives him of the true purpose of this life here and now. And often, if the person has power, or to the extent that the person has power, he'll cause harm to not only himself and his akhirah, but also to the environment, to people, to nature, either unconsciously or consciously, directly or indirectly. So there is a link, a connection between this delusion of self-sufficiency and transgression. And injustice in the world, by transgression, mean injustice to ourselves and to the world. And so injustice in the world, we are told in these two verses, in these two ayat, stems from this arrogance, this greed for power, for dominance. And often the wrongdoers that we call criminals, for instance, are the petty ones, those who have no power. Those who have power, they can cause harm at much greater scales. Whole nations can be oppressed. And we are given examples of these attitudes in the Quran. There are two attitudes that I shared, and I shared a quote from Imam Nursi, rahimahullah. And for instance, in the Quran, we are given examples like of Pharaoh, Fir'aun, and Qarun, Korah. And as we need to remember all the time that if we are given these examples in the Quran, it means we all have potential Fir'aun and Qarun within us. Fir'aun is a huge Fir'aun, but we can have mini Fir'auns or a mini inclination. It means we have the potential, we have the seed, and we better be careful not to cultivate that seed. So inshallah, we won't end up in Fir'aun, whether small or big. And that's why we are told about these people in the Quran. They are the people who actualize those negative potentials, unfortunately for them and for the world, because they don't only bring darkness to themselves, but also to others. And remember, Qarun's arrogance was due to his illusion that he himself acquired whatever he had, all the wealth and the power he had. He appropriated it to himself as if it were not a gift to him. And so we told in the Quran that he claimed, this wealth, this power has been given to me only by virtue of the knowledge that is in me. So he's saying, I have a knowledge, and with this knowledge I acquired all this wealth and power. And this is something that we do very often. Like we attribute things that we have to our own ability, whether it's knowledge or anything else. And the word tagha that is used in ayah 7 of this surah, and ayah 6, kalla inna al-insana la yatgha, it's used many times in relationship, in connection with Fir'aun. So we told many times in the Quran that Fir'aun transgressed. For instance, we're told, Musa alayhi salam is told to go to Fir'aun. He says, idhab ila Fir'aun innahu tagha. Go to Fir'aun because he has transgressed. So the cause for this tughyan, for this transgression, is, we are told, and I want to make this point clear so that it's very clear in our mind, in our heart, because if the delusion of being self-sufficient is at the root of transgression, then it's very important to understand it and to not fall into this illusion. And so this illusion of being self-sufficient is the illusion when we imagine ourselves to be free of needs, or we have needs, but we imagine that we can take care of them. We're taking care of them ourselves, which means at the end of the day, we forget about our Rabb because it doesn't seem like we need him. It seems like, yes, we may have needs, but we also have some power to take care of those needs. And so the transgression, the rebellion, doesn't have to be a conscious transgression. Often it is done quietly. We're not even aware of it. It feels like, has nothing to do with what we know as information. When we say know, there are two possible meanings. It could be just information. It's there somewhere in a corner in my memory. There is another knowing, which is a knowing of certainty. That knowing of certainty, I feel it in my heart, in the sense that that's how I feel life. That's how I experience things. So we may have heard and we may know in the sense and accept in the sense that we don't reject that we have a Rabb who is taking care of us, but how we live, how we experience life is what matters. And so that quiet or let's say unconscious transgression, that unconscious defiance is possible because people may not be aware of how much they need their Rabb. So people can pray to God, but prayer may feel like an effort or a sacrifice. I'm talking about the salat, not praying for help, but like we're worshiping God, but even the worship may feel like an effort, like I'm making an effort, I'm sacrificing my time, I'm doing something extra, as if. And why does it feel like that? Because it feels like he created us in the beginning, and now I'm living my life, but I owe him because he created me in the beginning. So I have to pray to him. And in that state, the person has no clue about the real meaning of prayer, of course. And this erroneous perception of prayer stems from our distorted perception of who we are, what we talked about as the self last week. Because in that state, people don't realize how they are totally dependent on our Rabb's mercy and generosity. So in that state, people don't realize that they are being sustained in life 24/7, here and now and always. And so that praying or worshiping God is not a burden, is not like a duty I have to do, but an opportunity to converse with God, with our Rabb, with our generous, compassionate host. It is a privilege to be able to thank him, to remember that I am not alone, I'm not alien, I'm not an orphan. I have a Rabb who is taking care of my needs. And so it is so soothing for the ruh to remember again and again that I'm being taken care of. Because the truth is that God does not need our worship, but we do. So we need to know that we're not orphans, we're not alone, we have a Rabb, someone who truly cares about us, so someone who takes care of all our needs. Even the desires that we think we have are not from us, but from him, subhanallah. And as we are told the week before, he is this Rabb Al-Akram, he is like, there is this takreem of a human being. He's been honored. We're his special creation. He's honored, esteemed guests to whom he made all the angels prostrate. And we're endowed with a fitrah so that we can recognize the good and the bad, however much deluded, however much unconscious we are, deep down, we have a sense of good and bad, even if we are not clear about exactly what is good and bad. There may be some gray area in the middle, but everyone has that sense from the fitrah. As we are told in the Quran, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. How do you say? Consider how the nafs, how the human self is being formed, and how it is inspired with fujuraha wa taqwaha, with its failings as well as with its consciousness of God. So here in Ayah 7, we are told that the transgression is because he believes himself to be self-sufficient, and ra'ahu istaghna. So being told that the root cause of human defiance and transgression, and therefore for injustice and wrongdoings, the root is the delusion that he is free of need, as though he does not need anyone's help. And so what we don't realize is that, so how this is explained in classical tafsir is that there are two shari'as, al-sharia al-Qur'aniyya and al-sharia al-fitriyya. I'll explain what it means. So we're told that we don't realize that the sharia of the Quran, what God's will, how it manifests in the Quran, is revealed to us out of mercy. It is a gift. It is guidance. This we hear all the time. Now, the point is that we not only repeat it, or not only we accept, even when we say we accept, we actually, truly, what we're doing is we're not rejecting, we're not denying. But in order to truly accept and embrace and take it to heart, we need to witness. We need to have evidences, so that our heart, لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي, as Ibrahim alayhi salam said, so that our heart are at peace, so that we feel it in our heart. It's not just something that we don't reject. So let's consider the Sharia, the so-called Sharia al-Fitriyya, which is, Sharia al-Fitriyya is the way we have been created. The Fitra follows the will of God, because he creates us in a particular way. That's what Fitra means, particular nature, peculiar to human beings. And so, for instance, you can't make a cat learn language. We talked about it in the beginning with Iqra, because it's not in his fitra. Human beings, they learn language because that's how they are created. They are created with that ability. So in the Sharia Fitriyya is not only the fitra of human being, but how everything in the world is created. It follows his will. So for instance, fire burns. What do? We are created with that sense of we run away from it. We are cautious. We understand that. We handle it with care so that we are not harmed, because we created with that sense of generally not wanting to harm ourselves. And the results are often immediate when it comes to fire, for instance. Why? Because we see the result right there. However, there are situations where the results are not always immediately known or observable. For instance, lying in our fitra, we know it's harmful. We don't like when it is done unto us, when we're being lied. But somehow, in some situations, we may justify lying. We rationalize it. But the Sharia Qur'aniyah, that's when it steps in and tells us, no, you can't lie. You can't rationalize it. Because the rationalization is going to always be so that I benefit, or so it's going to be I centered. And sometimes it looks like we are doing good, but later we find out that it just complicates things and it doesn't solve anything. And that's why we're saying you stick to haqq, to the truth. So because we cannot always assess the harm of lying to ourselves and to others, or because sometimes, in some cases, people know they are doing harm, but if they can get away with it, they just go ahead and do it anyway, like stealing, if they can get away with it. Then the Sharia Qur'aniyah steps in and we are told, you cannot do this. It puts boundaries, limits. And so the Sharia Qur'aniyah puts limits concerning not only our social life, but, well, primarily our individual life, and then our social life. And those, to the extent that we consciously follow this enjoyments, the Sharia Qur'aniyah, then we will realize that it benefits us emotionally and spiritually as well, not only individually and socially as an individual, but it heals our emotional life and spiritual life. But often we are unaware of how these spheres, the spiritual and the emotional, is connected to the social, and how one lying can have so many effects, like a ripple effect, and how all these spheres are intricately interconnected and how they affect each other, and how they affect not only our life here and now, but also our eternal life. That's why in the beginning, we don't need to know everything. We trust and we surrender. We just follow. Once we know the evidence, we have the evidence that our Rabb has knowledge and we don't know. He has wisdom and we don't. We have wisdom only to the extent that he gave us. He has power. Then we trust him and we surrender to his will, and we say, if whoever created me is telling me this is best for you, then most probably this is the case. And I will willingly surrender and trust to the extent that I know whose will it is. I know God as my Rabb. But so this is the classical explanation, the two Sharias, how we need to be aware that we are not self-sufficient because we need help. And so we need help in all kinds of ways. In my experience, many people, I'm talking mostly about Muslims, don't seem to relate to this approach. However, it is sound, it is true, it is correct. However, people don't seem to relate to it because we're unfamiliar with the concepts. So just speaking another language. So I'm going to approach the same problem from another perspective. And this perspective I personally learned from Imam Nursi. He speaks to people in the 20th century. So he speaks a language that we can relate to much more easily. So now we'll start with the problem. The problem is people transgress when they believe themselves to be self-sufficient. This is what ayah 6 and 7 tell us. And for this, I'll make use of the two potential attitudes, the two perception that I introduced last week when I shared the passage from Imam Nursi rahimahullah, when he reflects on few ayats from the Quran, and he explains, he explains this in many parts of his tafsir, but there is a particular part where it is especially explaining these two main choices that we can make and how each choice affects various areas of our life. And so keeping in mind that, of course, in each choice, there are many levels. And one is where we often find ourselves without even being aware. And actually, because that's when we are in ghafla, so we don't even realize that it is a choice. It seems like that's how things are, as if that's the universal reality. And in this mental construct, we think that we are self-sufficient and independent. That's how, it's not even we think, we feel. We don't think about it, we feel it. That's how we experience reality. And the other one, if you remember, was being conscious that we are totally dependent on our Rabb's sustenance and his benevolence, his mercy, his generosity. In other words, we are not self-sufficient. And this is what we are taught in the Quran. And this is the only way we can fulfill our ubudiyya truly consciously. And this is the only way we get to know our Rabb and worship him alone, because it's the only way we can experience ourselves as abd, and therefore in that ubudiyya will mirror rububiyyah. Any other way is going to be taqlid, just imitative, repeating things without truly grasping them and experiencing them. So I like this, let's say, codification that Nursi offers, because I find it very helpful in clarifying, making things clear. We can clearly see what's going on within ourselves once we are aware that of these two choices and the degrees within these two attitudes. So it provides us with a kind of map. So now we want to decipher how come whenever we believe that we are self-sufficient, we're actually transgressing. We need to understand this point, the relationship between self-sufficiency and transgression, because it is extremely important. I hope you can see that it is very important. First, we need to recognize that indeed we are not self-sufficient. Then, inshallah, we'll be able to see how this illusion of self-sufficiency, when we are aware that we are not self-sufficient, then we will see that it is an illusion to experience life as though we were self-sufficient. And then we, inshallah, want to see how this illusion of self-sufficiency is at the basis, at the root of every shirki worldview, every wrongdoing. And every wrongdoing comes from shirk, whether it is open shirk or most often it's going to be hidden. People, especially like believers, Muslim believers, they're not going to say, let's go and commit shirk. No, we do it without realizing. That's why it is so dangerous. And we are told also that this transgression is at the root of misery and suffering in other passages in the Quran. So if we understand this situation, inshallah, we will be able to appreciate the healing of the Quranic guidance. And the more we appreciate the healing and the mercy in the Quranic guidance, the more likely, inshallah, we are to embrace it and embody it, live with it, inshallah. So let me clarify what it means that we believe to be self-sufficient. What does it mean when we say human beings imagines or believes he's self-sufficient? We say, I know I have a Rabb, I know I have needs, I know I can't create things. Let's understand what it means so we can understand the root cause of transgression, inshallah. And we will, the more we understand what it means, the more we will, inshallah, be able to recognize it within ourselves. Let me start with something easy to follow, inshallah. Feeling stressed. Whatever we mean by feeling stressed means I am not at ease, I am not at peace with what's going on. I'm feeling stressed. Something is bothering me. And by this, I mean it's bothering me it's persisting, because it can be, how do you say, something comes and it passes. I learn from it and it goes. But if it persists, then we call it stress. So what are the causes of stress? The reason we feel stressed? This is a question, and I'm expecting answers. Can you just, one word will suffice. Can you share things? What are the causes of stress? What are the things that make you feel stressed, for instance? Nothing?
A lot of things: rejection, lack of appreciation,
Yes.
abuse,
Yes.
taking advantage of.
Yes.
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed is probably itself part of it's another way of saying I'm stressed, right? Feeling overwhelmed.
You try to make something happen one way that you want it to happen, it doesn't happen that way.
Exactly. How about lack of money? No. And you don't have like pressure of paying bills?
Fear of failure.
Fear of failure. Stressful or bad relationship with family, with friends, with colleagues? No? Yes, no?
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, yes.
Children can contribute to the stress of
I
have
one of my close friends, like, what stressed her was, I think it was either the mailman or like someone that she saw, like, on occasions, that always like frowned in her face, like, so she was stressed when she saw him coming.
Yeah, it could be like colleagues, yeah, anyone, a neighbor, yeah, people who we interact often. Children can contribute. I mean, children, usually we associate them with joy, but sometimes, especially when they start growing,
yeah, and fear of day of judgment.
But that
stress, of course.
Yeah, maybe it depends what you think about it, right? Mm-hmm. Why do you feel stressed when you feel about the day of judgment?
Because we do sins. We are not sin free. So, even one small sin can, in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be so.
So we're worried about the outcome.
Uncertainty.
Yeah. So it's uncertainty of the outcome.
Yeah, result. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe it's the same with our children as they grow. We have less and less control over their choices, and if they defy us, then we feel more and more stressed. And it's again to do with the outcome. The outcome is not under our control, and so we're worried about it.
Also, fear of the future, fear of being alone, fear of what's going to happen to the children once I'm gone. A lot of fears around that. So
for security, you know.
Okay. So all these things like fear of future and things are all to do with things that we feel we have no control over, right? Yes or no?
Yeah, it's like you don't. It's like needing assurance that that things will work out. So you do feel like you don't have control.
Yeah.
It's frustrating not knowing what's going to happen next.
You're right. Right.
Yeah. It's as childish as it sounds. It's a big thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Okay, thank you for sharing. So there are so many things that seem to cause us stress. All the things that you shared, even not knowing what will happen, or health. What comes to my mind as well, I had not thought about that, but health can be also. And we perceive these conditions as stress factors. That's how they're often called, stress factors or stressors or whatever. And see how they're all external to us. And note how they're related to, Alia mentioned that, to some dissatisfaction within us or dissatisfaction with, how do you say, we're not where we would like to have been, or things are not going, Alia said, things are not going the way we want them to go, for instance, right? Or we don't know, we don't have certainty, that's why we were worried. So we want to know the outcome, or we want to know, at least be assured. Some of you said we have to have at least that assurance that things will work the way we want them to be, the way we expect them to be. Okay. So is it true that these situations causes us stress? Is it true that we feel stressed because of those situations? Can something, or let me ask it this way, can something going on out there actually make me stressed? Just
no, it has to do with our attitude and interpretation of it.
exactly.
So if it's down deep, I know I am stressed because I'm impatient, and well, forget impatient. I'm not pleased with myself.
Yeah, or I'm not pleased with something.
Exactly. It's always yeah.
Exactly. So what matters here, the first step is that they are not the cause of our stress. If we agree on this, we can carry on.
There is a small example that I've shared before that makes it clear. When we first came, one of our neighbors, wanted us to buy halal meat for her. And she like asked, when are you going to bring this halal meat? And, you know, I just jumped up and said, oh, she said, I needed it before 4 o'clock. And I just said, oh, of course, it's going to be before 4 o'clock. And my husband, knowing like there's so many variables, said, no, we cannot promise it to be before 4 o'clock. And, you know, and we'll do our best, but we cannot promise. So anyway, we went, you know, got the meat and came back. And, you know, when we knocked on the door, like, you know, to give her the meat, it was like the kitchen door, like that was the door to the home. She was very, very furious. We were there after 4 and she had all of the ingredients of a meal that she wanted to cook. And she opened the door and just like held the ingredients in front of me and said, this is what you've done to me. You've made this day terrible. She took all of the ingredients, threw them in the garbage and said, I'm not, you know, she was like really, really, really upset because the meat was not there at the time that she planned to cook it. And she like, and my husband, like, you know, kindly, you know, said, we did not promise before 4 because I knew it wasn't, but she was stressed out. It was totally unmanageable. And, you know, because she had an expectation that things needed to happen a certain way. Yeah.
She had a plan and the plan didn't follow. She couldn't follow.
And she could not be thankful that we actually went out of our way, brought it back, brought it. She did not think about how it was hurtful for us. She did not think that this was rude. All what she could focus on that she's been in stress, you know, and preparing to do this meal in time, and we were the cause of her stress.
Yeah, and we can understand that that can't be the cause because in the same condition, someone else wouldn't be affected in the same way. So clearly, it is our attitude that makes the difference. So there is only one single reason we feel stressed, and that is related to us, to our attitude, and it is because we have a fixed idea of how things should be, and when things don't go our way, we are unhappy. Or if it is about the future, we want to have the assurance that it's going to be one way, guaranteed. And because we don't have that assurance, we can't be sure. So we are stressed. What if it means, the stress there means, what if things don't come out the way I would like them to be? So we are unhappy. And sometimes when things out there go really out of control, we can even break down, like in this example. In this example, it was a small, well, for other people, it could seem like it's not a big deal, but she broke down. But different people will have different situations that can break them down, right?
Sister Yamina, you know, personalities which have perfection in their
they are going to be more affected, but we all have it to different degrees. Some people will be affected more, but like for instance, in a case of a very serious illness, very serious financial setback and things like that, people who can be laid back and like taking it easy may suddenly also break down, right? So it depends on.
Yeah, perfection traits in people cause them into trouble. They just want it a certain way. And
but like we want to know, I'm going to follow so that we go back to what's going on underneath this. For instance, we stressed when what happens in the world out there in reality doesn't fit our expectations of how it should have been, whether it's now or in the future. Now, I'm not saying that when we go through hardship, for instance, we're not going to do anything and just wait or be lazy. We're going to take action anyways, according to the situation, inshallah. However, what I'm saying is we do not have to necessarily be overwhelmed with stress. Is it clear right now? I'm not saying we're not taking action, we're not doing anything. I'm saying the perception of what's going on, the attitude doesn't have to be that. So now the stress we feel is because we don't accept the reality. It means when I don't accept the reality, what am I doing? I am resisting it. This is important because resist is the opposite of surrender. And we are supposed to be surrenderers, Muslim. So the stress we feel is because we resist the reality when it is not up to our expectations. Let me explain what I mean by that. Knowingly or unknowingly, most of the time it's unknowingly, we have this rigid idea of how things should be or should have been. It depends. The area is going to vary from person to person. And when things don't go our way, don't go the way we expected, what happens? We feel out of control. We feel that things are out of control. We don't have control. And when we feel that we're losing control, then that's what we call stress. We panic. And in some cases, the panic can be quite acute. That is, the stress is the feeling of losing control, the feeling of not being in control. And if you think about it, isn't our life an unending quest for control at various levels? We're always trying to control things. So in order to reach whatever we want, we make plans, and then we work to realize those plans. And our motivation is to make things happen the way we'd like them to be. That's what we understand from plan. Things in the example of the meal, there is a plan there. I planned that the meal should be ready by this time. And I could get everything ready and wait just for the meat, but no. Meat is an important ingredient in my perception. And so the moment the meat doesn't come, my plan is ruined and I lose control. It feels like I'm losing control. Here, it may seem like a simple example for us, but we may exhibit similar attitude when we think that the topic is important, but it is important for whom? For me. For her, the meal was important. For me, something else is important. What matters here is that we recognize that the feeling of losing control is the cause of our stress. And that's why we live our life as we are always in quest of control. It seems like if I do this and that, I will reach the desired outcome. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. When it works, we call it success. It feels like I succeeded, I did it, and I am proud, or at least I am not stressed. And when it doesn't work, we call it failure, and then we get stressed. Oh, I lost power again. I couldn't get things done in the way I want them to be, in the way they are. We don't say the way I want them. We say the way they are supposed to be. Who decided? Me. In any case, all these are attempts at being in control. Because when we are in control, we feel self-sufficient. I am taking care of my needs. And when we are not in control, we feel helpless. We feel ajiz, as we are told in the hadith.
Well, it's we come up with our own stories. We write stories in how things are supposed to be.
Yes.
And how things are supposed to turn out.
Yes, true.
And we live in those stories.
Mm-hmm.
And we claim to be surrenders. So when you are, surrendering to the will of Allah, that means you are in constant motion of what's happening. You're constantly changing and going along with the daily, whatever that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, we make our life very static, very rigid, because we create these stories in our head, and everything has to fit that story.
Exactly.
So when something like that meat didn't show up, the problem is not with the meat not showing up. The problem is it didn't fit my story of how things are supposed to be. So there's no distinction.
That's threatening. Why is when it doesn't fit my story, it's threatening because it is a reminder that I don't want to face, a reminder that I am not in control. And if I'm not in control, how can I take care of my needs? And the whole thing, the whole story is built, whatever the story is, all our stories have one thing in common. It is built in order to cover our being totally in need, totally vulnerable, totally, we can't take care of our needs ourselves. And the whole story is about, I take care of myself, I am self-sufficient. And I need to be in control in order to be able to claim and believe that I am self-sufficient.
Dr. Yamina, there's another thing besides the control of self-control. I mean, sometimes if we are violating,
it's not self-control,
Allah's
it's control of situations around me. It's not about self-control. It's about outcomes.
Saying if our kids are not doing their salah, yes. I mean, in my case, they're not ready to get married. That's a stressor for me. But these are all the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are not following. So that is also a stressor. Besides having, like you said, it's about control, but it's also about, not following Allah's commands is also a stressor.
Good. It's a good point. Okay. So as I said before, it does not mean that we won't take action or there is no action to be taken. So let's say if the child is, if it's not the child, if it's an adult, okay, it's over. But let's say the child is still a kid and doesn't want to pray. Now I am still responsible, and it's going to, I have a responsibility. Now my responsibility is, I have a problem here, I have a child, and how am I going to make my child be friend with Salat, right? Because there is no point in just saying pray. We may have even how do you say, experienced that we tried it and it doesn't work. So now I'm going to go around, ask other people, how did they do it? Maybe put him in with friends who do it. Whatever. That's not the topic here. Is while I'm doing all this, I may be stressed, I may not be stressed. If I am doing it as this is my responsibility, I am doing it, how do you say, with surrender, with trust that Allah didn't put this child in this situation just to make me stressed. It is part of my own growth. It is part of my own ubudiyah. And with as much compassion, as much understanding, as much patience as I can, I am going to try my best. What I'm responsible for is trying my best. And if I realize afterwards that I could have done better, then I make istighfar. And I can make istighfar while I'm doing my best, because how do I know the best anyways? Now, while I'm doing it as ubudiyah, I accept the situation that this is how it's created. And if it is created like this child is not given to me as to be, how do you say, a bala. But it is given, whoever is creating the situation has wisdom, has knowledge, has rahmah. There is purpose in all this. So I accept the situation and I deal with it as much as well as I can. This is one way of dealing with it. Another way of dealing with it is panic. What's going on now? The plan is that my child will pray. He's not praying. It's not following the plan. I'm not in control here. How can I be in control again? Even if I find the best way and my child, alhamdulillah, prays, it's good for him. But if I am doing it as with the attitude that I'm being in control, I am the good mother, I am making him pray, look around at the other parents, you see, I am a good parent, I am doing my duty very well, I am not doing my ubudiyah. So if there is stress, it is a persistent stress, because the first time I see that my child doesn't want to pray, it's going to bring some fear, some in me. That's normal, because the fear is the message, the prompter, the ayah that's going to tell me you need to do something. Something is going on here. There is something, you need to be doing something. So I start asking for, praying for help. And this praying is not only with words, with action as well, with attitude, with praying to God and everything. But if the stress persists, it is definitely a sign that there is a disconnection with my Rabb. It's about me being in control of my child, and my plan for him is not working. My plan can be totally nothing wrong with it. I want my child to pray, to prepare for akhirah and all things. But the way I'm relating to it is problematic. Because remember the two attitudes. In one, I am connected to my Rabb. I am totally, I am not the creator. I'm not in control. Even when I'm acting in the name of my Rabb. And in the second one, I may be doing exactly the same thing, but my attitude is I am acting, I am in control, or I am not in control, I'm losing control, and panic and stress. Does it make sense? It's not about the action, we're talking now about the attitude behind the action. And it is that attitude, that niyyah, that is going to make whatever we do is going to be ubudiyah and ibadah, worship, or it's going to be fodder for our ego. And I say, oh, I'm a very good Muslim, very good parent. My child recites the Quran very well, prays 5 times a day. My child may be saved, but I could have, all that could have been made into ubudiyah, but I make it about me, about the I, and about self-pride. Okay?
Jazakallah khair. I like the explanation, because a lot of times at the root of mother to children is the pride that my children, like my children represent me, like, so it's my image. It's more, it's a lot of times about me. And I've heard a lot of students at college would say, that like the word, like, shame, like bring shame to my parents. So it's all about me. So Jazakallah khair.
Yeah, when we are in that, remember last week, the I that is disconnected, even when we are, all what we are doing is totally following God's will, but we want to take credit for it, because while we are doing it, the iman is, that connection is weak. That is weak. Even we are in a state of following his will. So in a state of, somehow we are surrendering, but we are not surrendering at all levels, because we are unaware of that, the attitude that we are taking. So this is very important. So if there is persistent stress, it is a sign of fearing that we are losing control. And why do we want to be in control? Because otherwise we cannot sustain that illusion of being self-sufficient.
Yes, Dr. Yamina, but I was saying that it's not always about self-control. Like if you take the example of the Prophet ﷺ, that there's 2 or 3 verses in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to comfort him that you will kill yourself with grief because people were not listening to him. And he had this great, not remorse, I should say, grief, basically, that, why, when he's explaining everything, people are not listening. So, so I'm saying it was not about control, but it was about their benefit, that Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wanted them
but
to,
sadness, you can be sad and not stress.
Yeah, the difference is the word stress and sadness. That's the difference.
You can be sad, and sadness is created with, if there is something to be sad and we are not sad, that's not normal. So sadness is an ayah from God, and it has a message to deliver. Fear is nothing wrong with fear, but so
here it was about grief. So much that
here
you
the grief is, yes.
No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word grief, right? For the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I mean, I don't remember exactly in Arabic what was the word used in Surah Kahf, another.
Maybe Huzn.
Huzn? I maybe. So, the whole verse, I'm just paraphrasing it, is this, that you will kill yourself with grief, means you'll be so much, it will affect you that, because Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to always had this stress, rather status. Grief is more than stress, I think, that why people are not listening, and then, he just wanted to save them from hellfire. So basically, was, grieved. I'll look up the word, inshallah.
Not only the word, we'll have to look at the situation. In any case, if Allah is talking to him, it means even the prophets, alayhi salatu wassalam, there, through the prophet, we are being taught something there, that even that has a limit. Allah is putting the limit there.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But we can be sad without being stressed. So here, when I'm saying feeling not in control, is feeling helpless. Helpless is a feeling we cannot feel while we are aware of our connection with our Rabb. We feel helpless. It means there is no connection in that moment. It may not be all the time. We're talking about attitudes. We're not talking about a particular person. The same person could be totally connected in another moment. So the fact here is that we do not have control. We strive, we struggle to be in control because we're seeking to be self-sufficient. However, the fact is, the truth is, we do not have control. We never have had control. We will never have control. True or no? Do we ever have control over anything? We don't. We can't even control our breathing, and therefore our staying in life is not under our control. We can die anytime. I think this is something that for me, it works whenever I tend to forget the reality. I remind myself, like the Prophet ﷺ used to remind the companions, al-mawtu haqqun. Death is our reality, and we are in a state of returning to God. So it's not only our last, the day when we actually leave the world, but we are in a state of leaving the world all the time. And so if you remember in the last ayah of Surah Luqman, Surah 31, ayah 34, we are told, truly with God alone rests the knowledge of when the last hour will come, and he sends down rain, and he knows what is in the wombs, whereas no one knows what he will reap tomorrow. Huda said, which is true, we want to know, especially when something, not everything, but when something is important to us, we want to know, and otherwise we feel restless. But he says, whatever will happen tomorrow, no one knows except him, and no one knows in what land he will die. Truly, God alone is all-knowing, all-aware. So it is important that he is all-knowing, because what we confuse when we are in that state of disconnection is that we have the need to know, we have the need that things are known, that things are under control. But we misinterpret that as we have to be in control, we have to know, and there starts the struggle to try to be in control, to try to know, to try to make sure the outcome is what we want. But in fact, we are told, you don't know, but someone knows. And that one who knows, he is your sustainer, he is your host, he knows everything, he has power over everything. So this knowledge is healing, because that is what we need. The need is not that we be in control, but that everything is under control. This difference is very important. In Surah Al-Zumar, Surah 39, I'm going to share the passage from ayah 41 to 47. I was going to share only one ayah, ayah 46, I think, but then I couldn't resist, and I'm sharing the whole passage, because that ayah, first, it becomes more meaningful within the context of the passage, and also so we get more familiar with the message of the Quran, because we're not exposed to the message of the Quran, like these ayats. We don't hear them much. Like, subhanallah, the power of the message of the Quran, it never ceases to amaze me. It's so beautiful, it's so meaningful, so full of guidance. Alhamdulillah. So we're told, behold, we sent you this book, setting forth the truth for the benefit of whole humankind. And so whoever chooses to be guided, he does so for his own good. And whoever chooses to go astray, he goes astray to his own hurt. And you have no power to determine their fate. because we've been given free will. So we get to say the last word, to choose our fate. And we choose it in every choice. We are choosing the direction of our destination. And then the next ayah says, it is God who causes all human beings to die at the time of their death. And he causes to be as dead during their sleep those who have not yet died. Thus he withholds those upon whom he has decreed death, and lets the others who did not die, to go free for a term set by him. In all this, behold, there are ayat, indeed, for people who reflect. إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون. What is the ayah here? We all go to a mini death at night, and lo and behold, some never wake up, and some of us wake up. So each morning when we wake up in the morning, it is a miracle. We've been given life again. Subhanallah. And he says this is an ayah. And yet they choose, even though the ayat are so clear, people choose to worship side by side with God imaginary intercessors. Say, why? Even though they have no power over anything and no understanding? Say, to God alone belongs all intercession. He has the mulk, the dominion over the heavens and the earth. And in the end, unto him you are brought back. And yet, when God is mentioned alone, the hearts of those who do not believe in the hereafter, in akhirah, shrink with aversion. However, when those apart from him, it means those things that they give importance to, are mentioned, behold, they rejoice. If you talk about God alone without any shirk, they are not happy. Say, ayah 46, say, O God, originator of the heavens and the earth, knower of the unseen as well as the seen, you judge between your servants regarding that which they differ. But if the wrongdoers possessed all of the earth's assets and twice as much, they would surely offer them to ransom themselves from the terrible punishment of the day of resurrection. So people work for power and amassing wealth and things, but on the day of judgment, it means on the day where the reality of everything is clear, even if they possess the whole earth, the whole assets of the earth, or even twice as much, they would give them just to ransom themselves. So inshallah, we don't have to wait for that day. We can understand right now that our quest for control is an illusion. It is the illusion of ghafla, of the mindless who lives in a state of ghafla, a state of heedlessness. And why do we believe in such an illusion? Why do we cling onto this illusion of being in control? Because otherwise we would have to face the reality that we are not self-sufficient, and we would feel helpless. And why? Because the fact is that on one hand, we have so many needs. On the other hand, we are so weak, so powerless. So we go on a quest to secure the power needed to take care of our needs and gain self-sufficiency and to gain power. So to gain self-sufficiency here is not the problem. To gain it and have the illusion that now I am self-sufficient. I am doing it myself. And so gain power and say, I am powerful. That's it's not what we do, it's how we view it, how we perceive it, the attitude that we take that is the problematic. And so being in control here is the corollary illusion of being self-sufficient. Sufficient is an illusion, trying to be in control is also an illusion. We are never in control of anything. So as I mentioned, we are created with the need that everything is under control. And the good news is that they are actually under control. But it is not under our control. They are under the control of Rabbul Alameen. So this is actually great news. They are under the control of their own maker, the one who sustains all things, all beings, including ourselves, into existence. The Rabb and our Rabb, whose power, whose knowledge and mercy and compassion encompass all things. So isn't this much better than struggling to take things in control when we can't even control our own breathing, on which our life depends? Isn't that really soothing and relieving to know and witness that everything is under control? So then whatever we do, but not as a quest of being in control. We do the same thing, but with a different attitude. So to the extent we know our Rabb, then inshallah we become aware that He is in full control, and therefore all is well. Even when things are hard, even when I am very sick, even when things around me are not going the way I would like them to, I am not stressed because I can surrender. I know He is in control. So we need to reflect on this fact until it becomes certainty, it becomes yaqeen to us, and until we feel it in our heart. So it's not only information, but it is a reality that we experience, that we feel in our hearts. And so we have no doubts whatsoever about it, that everything is under control. And so the more we cultivate this certainty, this yaqeen, the more our iman is anchored with the help of the clear evidences we witness in the creation. And so the evidences are there. For instance, the fact that every morning we wake up, the fact that we are breathing, the fact that things are being taken care of. The more we reflect, the more we will find evidences that testify to our Rabb's, not only that He is in control, but also that He has the power of everything. He owns everything. He has knowledge of everything, He knows my needs, my desires. He knows everything. And He has the wisdom and the compassion and the generosity. So together with this reflection, with this tafakkur and tadabbur, we also need to act on what we testify. And one of the first actions that we can take, it's an inner action, is gratitude. Gratitude to God. The more we cultivate gratitude in our hearts, the more our awareness of the reality that we are being sustained here and now and always will increase. And so we won't fall back into imagining that we have to take care of ourselves and again fall into the illusion of trying to control outcomes in order to secure our needs. So gratitude is the gratitude for what we have right now. When I'm grateful for what I have right now, it means I am surrendering. That's a surrender. It means I stop resisting what is in order, hoping to change it at all costs. Okay? When I'm
Dr. Yamina?
Yes.
Question.
Yes.
you are familiar with Abraham Hicks, and she talks about you're the creator of your own reality. So, so as a Muslim, it's really nothing wrong with that. Keep in mind that everything that you just talked about. So is it okay to say, because I struggle with what she talks about us being the creator of our own reality, and she's talking about the energy and sending out. So I guess as long as in my heart I keep the fact that Allah is the creator of all things and everything, but I am, in a way, I'm the creator of things as well. But keeping in mind in my heart, Allah, the Almighty, the creator of everything.
Let's say we choose our reality. Because we choose, because even when I am living the same facts, different people are going to live a different reality. Either if I am surrendering, I will see the reality as it is, and it's always going to be something that will add to my growth and brings me closer to the purpose of my creation, and closer to my Rabb, because we are here to get to know him, and it will help me fulfill that potential, so that to fulfill the potential that is given to me, so that in Akhirah, before Akhirah, actually in this world as well, I'll make the best of what is given to me. But I could be in the same situation and I'm stressed and unhappy, and because wherever we are, if I want more, where I am will seem less, if you see what I mean. And so I will be unhappy. I wish I had this and that. So we choose what reality we are experiencing. Do we create it? Let's say this way: when why do we want to? If we are using create in the sense of we're making, when we are unhappy and miserable, that's our own doing. When we are happy and fulfilled and satisfied with whatever Allah gave us here and now, then that's the fitrah is fulfilling itself.
Yamina, isn't this our amana, the amana to make the choice of seeing things with the face of God in it, or seeing things only the way they look at us? So in the first scenario, when we are peaceful with what's happening around us, then we are choosing to see the face of God. And in the second scenario, we are choosing to ignore that we are always sustained here and now. So then the choice is the key word, I guess, like you said.
But Huda, is what bothering you is the word creator?
Yes, the word that she says, create your own reality.
You can say creator bi-idhnillah, like Isa alayhi salam in the Quran, he said, I create this and this bi-idhnillah.
Yeah. And she does talk about
but I don't know what you are talking about exactly, because
is she a Muslim scholar?
I don't think so.
No. Abraham Hicks, she talks about creator of your own reality. But it's interesting what you mentioned about if you are in resistance, if you're resisting what is happening, and you because it's really fitting your story. Then it's interesting that you mentioned that, because she also talks about if you are resisting what's happening to you, and you're looking at the absence of what if, then you are blocking your ability to create your positive or whatever reality that you're looking for.
I mean, there is definitely wisdom in that, because whoever stops and reflects on how, on the, let's say, the human condition, will figure this out. And these people, I am sure they are benefiting from ancient traditions. So yes, there is some truth and wisdom in it. How we understand it, I don't know exactly what she says. Is it a she? You said she, or?
Well, she speaks under the name of Abraham Hicks.
Okay, so whatever they're saying, but so I can't really answer that from that perspective, because I don't know exactly what she's saying. But if it is the word create itself, I know that it is problematic with Muslims, although we say I do things, but when it comes to create, we become very sensitive, which is okay, because inshallah we'll have the same sensitivity not only for the word create, but for everything. But I'm familiar with Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, Jesus. In the Quran, we're told when he's performing the miracles, he says, I create this and this, but he always adds bi idnillah. So it's always by God's leave. So what matters is that awareness that it's not me who is doing it. It is done unto me through me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, because I was becoming allergic to her saying create. Yeah, absolutely.
We don't know what she means, but like we know what we want to mean, inshallah.
But Dr. Yamina, I don't agree with her, because you see, we have surrendered to the reality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we cannot make our own realities. We have surrender means that you just follow the reality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we have to know that reality through Quran.
That's why I said we choose our reality.
So
we choose
a secular version.
We don't create, but we choose. We choose to accept the reality or live in the illusion of what we imagine to be the real. For instance, it seems like, can we choose to be self-sufficient or not? No, the reality is that we are not self-sufficient. But I can live with the delusion that I am self-sufficient. And when I live with that illusion, that's a choice. And the result of that choice is transgression, it's misery. So who is responsible for my misery? Myself, my choice. But when I accept the reality as it is, that I am not self-sufficient, that I am not in control, then the possibility of knowing my Rabb opens up, and a whole new reality opens up for me, which is the factual reality.
Yes, because the whole point is this: what if I'm wrong? And I, follow. After a few years, I find out that that I was all this years I was wrong, and we keep evolving our ideas, and so I think we have to surrender to Allah's reality, but we have to find what Allah wants from us and what is His reality through the Quran. And that's our journey.
Yeah,
I have an issue with using the word surrender and follow at the same time. It sounds to me not active surrender. To me, surrender, it has to be an active form of surrender. I can't just surrender and follow. That is very static. That's very limited.
No, I didn't understand. Surrender means surrender to the rules, regulations, and the philosophy of what, and the
of life.
But at this point,
no, but surrender is an ongoing process. It's not a static process.
Can I ask that we, like in the discussion time, like I think we're almost done now. So Yamina, if you wanted to end here and then have like this other discussion, that would be fine. It's 9:30, so it's up to you.
I wanted to at least make conclude with something here. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm talking here is not only the surrender that is obeying the rules of Islam. That's part of it, but what I'm talking about is a surrender that is much wider, and without that wider surrender, the other surrender will be just imitative, and that's why it does not transform who we are, and that's why it's always like following some rules rather than it doesn't become who we are. It's only looks to ibadah, but we want this ibadah to stem from our ubudiyah. Our ubudiyah is how we experience ourselves, how we feel who we are, and that connection with our Rabb has to be organic, and then everything else will follow easily. And so I don't want to, like, what we do is we want to shortcut, but when we shortcut, when we don't have that patience, then we are again falling back onto that imitative belief. And that's what we want to not break down, but we want to build on it. We don't want to get stuck there. We want something more. And so that's why I'm talking about this cultivating gratitude in our heart, because when I'm grateful for being sustained here and now, my awareness of my Rabb, of my ubudiyah, my being totally not self-sufficient, totally vulnerable, totally being sustained right now, becomes more and more part of my reality. And that reality is the only path to rububiyah. I will be aware of my Rabb in a very palpable way. I will feel and appreciate the rububiyah. Anytime I breathe, it is a manifestation of rububiyah. It is a manifestation that my Rabb is the giver of life. I am totally witnessing it, living it, experiencing it. He is al-Muhyi al-Hayy. I'm talking about it in this way. And so, gratitude for what we have right now, surrender in the sense that we stop resisting what's going on. Because usually when we are in ghafla, things are going on my way, it's all good. I say I'm very grateful. Something doesn't happen as I wanted it, I start worrying and now getting frustrated. Just a second. If I am a conscious surrenderer, I surrender to whatever is going on now, because I know it's not happening haphazardly. It's happening with purpose. I don't like it, I stop. Is it I don't like it arbitrarily, or truly I am very sick? I am made to not like sickness, so my dislike is also an ayah, it is also guidance, and I'm grateful that I have this dislike for illness, so that I am made to seek health. So I seek it in surrender to my Rabb. I seek it in, this is surrendering, this is following my Rabb's, he's enjoining upon me, telling me I am the Shafi, you seek Shifa. I am the giver of health, you seek health. So I seek health as his gift. So what I'm doing, I'm reading the sign. Be careful that what I'm doing now, I'm reading the signs in the name of my Rabb. And that is ibadah, that is ubudiyah. So it does not mean that I'm not taking action. I am taking action with surrender, with acceptance, with gratitude, with tawakkul, with trust, because we trust that as long as I do my best, Bismillah, for instance, in seeking health, my Rabb, who is the healer, the Shafi, will decree whatever is best for me. Because we're here in this life to achieve, we're not here to achieve a career, this goal, that goal. We are here, or those goals, let's say, those goals are means for us to experience the ayat, to read them in the name of our Rabb, and to get to know him with his most beautiful name. So I get to know him so my goal is not to be healthy. That is a means to get to know my Rabb as the healer. Because, okay, let's say I fulfilled my goal and became the healthiest person in the world. Maybe in few months I will die. So what? That goal cannot be my purpose in life, cannot be my destination. It is a means for me, if I read it as a sign in the name of my Rabb, I will get to know him as, it's an opportunity to know him as my Rabb, as the healer. And now I have access to the source of healing, not only here and now, but forever. And so in that action of seeking help is not only worship, it is also, it increases my iman and my certainty in akhirah, here and now. So those goals are means for us to experience the ayat. And as we do so, we fulfill the purpose of our creation and we prepare for the hereafter, which is our true and only destination. And everything else in this life is transient. It cannot be the goal itself. So they are all created to guide us on our journey, to get to know our Rabb, to get closer to him. Because all what we need and long for is only with him and with him alone. And nothing other than him can help us or assist us except him.
I think confusion is because, it is not surrendering blindly in Islam. We have to rationalize, go through the process of, the knowledge comes first before Iman, go through the process, and then once we surrender, then we follow the rules. But we are not supposed to follow blindly. First, we are supposed to rationalize everything. And when we figure it out, then we surrender. I mean, it's not a blind.
It is not about rationalizing, because I can rationalize the truth and the false. We have the ability to rationalize everything. So it is about witnessing the reality, and we are taught in the Quran how to internalize the result of our witnessing. And I'm saying the most powerful thing is gratitude. That's why we are told again and again, أَفَلَا تَشْكُرُونَ, or we are told to be grateful again and again. And gratitude is the essence of worship is gratitude. So gratitude is practicing tawheed in daily life. But gratitude to God, but conscious gratitude. So
the point was this, that I think there was a confusion because the sister was saying that the surrender, she has a problem with the surrender and follow. This happened after you have studied Islam very well and you are convinced of the rationale.
And also it's because there was, I am still not talking about that kind of surrender yet, although that kind of surrender is within this surrender I'm talking. But the surrender, that surrender is very narrow. And if we stay there only, we can be Muslim capital M without being Muslim small m, without surrendering. We can be doing the prayers and everything without truly surrendering in life. If we are surrenderers in life with Iman, then our surrender in the salat, in the everything else will become ihsan, and we are supposed to be abd 24/7, not only when we are praying and everything. That's why I am approaching the subject, the topic from this perspective, because otherwise you find that people, we know we have to pray, but people may not pray, or they pray, but they don't feel anything, or they pray just out of fear of hell. But prayer has to be much more than this. If it comes from a state of true surrender in the sense of what we are taught here. There is no istighna. We are aware that we are not self-sufficient. That is the essence of being abd, is living the reality of not being self-sufficient. There is no other way to know our Rabb. There is no other way, no other door onto Rububiyyah otherwise. That's why I feel the need to focus on it and emphasize it, because if we get this point, lots of other things are going to become like easier to, they will, how do you say, some of our problems will dissolve because they are not true problems. So the thing now is, I was going to share another point, but I can share it next week. The first thing is gratitude to God alone. I breathe, I'm grateful to my Rabb. He's the one making me breathe. So this gratitude, I don't just say, oh, I breathe thick, check. No, I stay there. I feel it in my heart until it is anchored, until it is my reality. I rejoice in it. I enjoy it. Alhamdulillah. I eat, subhanallah. It's not only the food that is the blessing. I just put it in my mouth, and lo and behold, it eats, it digests, it is all done unto me. Subhana Rabbiyal al-Azim, or Rabbiyal A'la, or whatever we do when we are in prostration, we do it in everything. So that eating becomes worship. That eating becomes ibadah, and I fulfill my ubudiyah and get to know my Rabb with ever unfolding different names. Whether I'm able to name them or not, I feel closer and closer to him. I get to know him better and better, and my love I start to love him more instead of loving the food, loving this and that. And my appreciation for the food will increase. It won't decrease, it will increase. But the food won't be the goal anymore. It will be the means. And life becomes totally different. It becomes, so this is an exercise that we can all do. Gratitude. And personally, every night before going to sleep, when you're in bed anyway, you have few minutes before you fall to sleep, concentrate on gratitude. The gratitude, for instance, the gratitude of just falling, we just in that horizontal position, and we feel we start resting. Alhamdulillah, how come? This is a blessing. It is done unto me. I am a abd. I am benefiting from your rububiyyah. The more we, if we do it before we go to sleep, when we wake up in the morning, again, life is given to me, then I am more likely to remember it during the day. And then, if I don't know how to read the signs, I will feed the need. I will say, is there anyone who can teach me how to read the signs around me in my life? But with that attitude, you will start reading some signs. With that attitude, when you read the Quran, it will make more sense. With that attitude, you will be guided to people, to sources, to writings and things, to teachers that will help you in that journey towards God, inshallah. And if after learning all this, we find ourselves going back to our state of ghafla and chasing after the illusion of being in control, of being self-sufficient, then we need to pause and ask ourselves that what we really want. Actually, this won't happen if we do the gratitude, if we practice the gratitude consistently. But let's say, for some reason, we found ourselves back, that we need to pause and ask ourselves, what do we really want? We need to make the choice. There are two choices: live unconsciously or live consciously as abd. Hold onto the illusion of the self-sufficient I and therefore resist reality and try to manipulate it and change it, or be unhappy with it, or, and when it is as to our liking, be proud about it. Or the other choice is we can choose to surrender to the reality. The reality is that we are being sustained. We have no self-sufficiency from ourselves. Even when we are making a living, it is given, done unto us. It is a gift. And so when we accept this reality, then we have to make the choice to be grateful to our Rabb, to our sustainer, for this sustaining. But this gratitude has to be a consistent practice. And the salat is one of the forms we express our gratitude to our Rabb for his rububiyah, for 24/7 we are being sustained. When our choice is clear, inshallah, then we are less likely to forget to practice conscious gratitude to God. In the beginning, we may forget because of our habit, but with this clear intention, this clear choice, it becomes easier and easier to make. Each time we realize it, we will make a U-turn as soon as we realize what's going on. Because if we already have made the decision to let go of our illusions, our false claims and beliefs, our stories, then it becomes easier to let go and say, oh, astaghfirullah, I forgot. Alhamdulillah, it's from you, it's not from me. And it's from you, I don't like it. Just a second. I don't like it because of my own story, or I don't like it because you made me dislike it. The dislike is also from you. I am listening. So what is the message here? So I find myself in that dialogue, in that mode of listening to my Rabb. And I listen to the guidance in life through the guidance of the Quran, because the Quran is what translates the signs in creation for us. And inshallah, so with this gratitude, all our sleep, our eating, our drinking, our walking, our seeing can all be transformed into ibadah and ubudiyah, inshallah. So we'll stop here, inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Amen. Jazakallah kulla khair, Sister Yamina. And maybe if we have like questions for the next time, we can start sending them on like the WhatsApp chat.
Sure.
And or reflections also, you could share them on the WhatsApp chat.
Yeah.
Jazakallah kulla khair.
Inshallah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.